Hi everybody, I'm Steve Olson, the assistant manager in the repair department. Today we're going to restring a steel string guitar with a slotted headstock. The main thing that I try to do is get as few windings as possible and sort of lock the end of the string through the post by pinching it on both sides and then trying to line it up so that the string angle from the nut is not compromised or exaggerated so that you're pulling away from the center. So the idea is to line it up on the tuner so that you wind toward the inside so that you get a nice straight line so that the string moves freely through the nut and doesn't bind. Securing the ball end, so you have notched bridge pins, or you don't sometimes, but you put the string through the bridge, put the bridge pin in until you feel it pull up, and you want the ball end to seat against the underside of the bridge plate so that it's nice and tight and so there's no slop there, so that the string is anchored properly when you start to tune it up. I line up the holes in the tuner so that the string goes straight through, pull the excess through, and it's kind of the same trick that I used on the regular steel strings. I just usually index it by putting my finger on the string at the nut and backing it up the distance to the first fret. Now while I hold the string and wind it, I will usually wind the low E string so that you go around the inside. Let me get the string winding up here first, and then come around and pinch the end this way so that it's on both sides of the winding, so that when the winding comes around, it gets sort of pinched in there and secured. Then when you line the string up and tune it down the rest of the way, it's a pretty straight line. And then you want to make sure that this is pulled up and seated properly and tuned up, and then just repeat as you go down the headstock. Again, I'll put the string in, make sure the ball end's pulled up. The A string and the D string I usually start on the outside and then wind in toward the middle so that you end up so that the winds don't overlap as they cross coming out of the headstock. So for instance, here, back it up the distance of 1 fret, then I'll wind on the outside, this side this time, and then continue toward the inside. This will hopefully keep the string pinched properly and keep it secured. And then you get a decent angle off the back, which is pretty straight, so it keeps the string in place. Just do one more just to complete the look here on this side, and then you just repeat on the treble side. Pull this down, pull it back. Start to the outside again. And wind toward the inside of the peg head like that. That way the strings are lined up so you could go farther, you could pull it in, but then you run the risk of having the string sort of bump into the edge of the headstock where it's cut out. Some headstocks have wider cutouts than others. Others you have to judge. If it's a narrower slot like an old Dobro or something, they don't give you a lot of room to maneuver, and you take what you can get. But this has a lot of room both ways, so you could put more string if you wanted to really line it up on the inside. But that's typically the way that I'd do it, to lock the strings on for stability's sake, and then just repeat on the treble side and wind it around. I don't usually tie them in a slotted headstock because they're such a pain to get off. I do the same thing and pinch the end of the string with the plain strings, and that's really about it. Then tune it up and you should be good to go. Thanks for tuning in.